call the meeting, the order of the meeting of Mayor and Council. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Before we get started, if you don't mind, I'd like to just say something. I've never really done this before. We normally just go right into our business, but since our last time meeting in this chambers, we've had 3 horrific vehicular accidents with loss of life, impacting families and our community. We've also had a kidnapping that happened just down the street from here in broad daylight, a true act of evil. If you're a person of faith and prayer, I'd ask personally that you would lift all of these people up in your prayers. They certainly need a healing touch. But I'm also a person of action, and I represent a group of people up here that are people of action, and I think there's things we can do. So we've invited our chief here tonight, and we're going to do what we need to do to keep our community safe. So with that, I'm going to ask Councilman Henderson to open us up in prayer. If you'd stand, please.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for all things, because we know that all things come from you. We thank you for your provisions and even the breath of life. We ask that you open our minds and our hearts to make good decisions on behalf of the citizens and residents and business persons here in Seaford. We ask it in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Okay, do we have any changes in tonight's agenda?
Yes, sir. We removed new business number 4 from the agenda that you're reviewing this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Make note of that. All right, you've all received the minutes of the public hearing held on January 10th. If there are any questions or comments or questions, otherwise I'll accept the motion to receive the minutes.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I believe that not only is it the public hearing, but isn't it
The
the
regular
entire meeting?
The entire meeting, correct. Yep, we'll make
I'll
that
second
change.
it.
Okay, second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay, it's unanimous. Okay, public comment. Do we have anybody here tonight for public comment that signed up?
We do. We have, first on the list is Dale Short.
Okay, Mr. Short. Remember, state your name and address, please, for the record.
Dale Short, 5043 Boyce, Seaford. I got a couple concerns I'd like to bring up. I'm not going to hammer anything to anybody. I mean, we all know there's problems, but there's some severe things I think should be looked at. We had an incident Saturday night down the 2 doors down from one of my properties. I have 3 properties in Seaford, and my tenant called me, which was a good thing, and he told me what happened, who he called. So I went in town and tried to get somebody to come maybe put this fire out, or at least look at it and see what's going on. I got patched through to DENREC. DENREC was very cooperative, but said they would send an officer out. To make a long story short, when I left there later that night, nobody was tending this fire. There was 3 to 4 foot flames, and it was just burning. Hot embers going up in the air. And like I told the guy from DENREC, I said, you know, I don't want to go home and get a phone call that the whole block is burned down and I've lost my property. I talked to Mr. Butler Anderson about it. He said he was going to bring it up, and hopefully there's some discussion around it where something is going to be done in the future. My best bet in the future, I think, is just call 911 and just say there's a fire, and don't get into any other details, you know, to get it put out. Another thing I'd like to bring up is how other landlords treat other landlords. They have no concern for them. They have no concern for their property. I've been in a fighting battle for years. I've actually had to put railroad ties down to keep people off my boundaries, off my property. Last week, I had a truck drive through the neighbor's driveway and drove through my whole backyard, which is almost the size of a football field. When that happens, it leaves ruts. I cut my own grass. It's not a pleasant thing to be hitting ruts when you're cutting grass. You say something to them, they act like no big deal. So I think there should be some accountability for other people's property. And the last thing I want to bring up, I'm not going to harp on because I know it's a big problem. When we started this 20 years ago to look at renting businesses, we had a couple goals. One was to make good, affordable housing for tenants. We looked at Selbyville, Laurel, and a couple other towns. Everything had rules and regulations that nobody could control. So we chose Seaford. Eventually, Seaford went with some rules and regulations. My thing is, I can't see in the last 3 to 4 years where anything has changed with the non-compliant people in the town. Thank you for your time.
Okay, is your name and number back there on the list?
Yes.
Okay, I'll follow up with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list?
We have Paul Sell.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question? Were we supposed, if we want to say something, do we need to be on a list?
Yes, there's a
I'm
list.
sorry, I'm new at this. So
That's,
I'm gonna-
there's a list in the back. Miss,
Been nice if somebody had told us that.
apologize, there's a list right there in the back.
Okay, how you doing, guys? Nice to see you all again. The last speaker, I can back up what he was saying because that is my landlord. I live at 327 Pine Street, and the incident happened on 317 Pine Street, where the guy was burning reconstruction material. A rather large fire. There was somebody around it for a while, and then before the fire went out, they left. The fire was unattended, and I wanted the lieutenant who called, the Sussex Fire Board, and they directed me to DNR. And they did have an officer come out. They said they were going to have an officer come out and talk to somebody. Well, apparently there wasn't anybody to talk to, and I guess he's the one who called the fire company. And that's a concern. These people just, they seem to do whatever they want, you know, and also I was there at home when that owner of that property drove his truck over in fact, 2 different properties he drove over. So anyway, that's the back end of it. A concern I have is down here at the triangle, going into Blades, where you have that nice big wall that says, "Welcome to Seaford," or whatever it is. When you're going down the hill, going into Blades, you have to look over your left shoulder to yield to oncoming traffic. That wall there creates a large blind spot. To me, it's very dangerous. I would like to see the wall removed. I know it costs a lot of money to put it up, but I think it was a mistake made there. And also, when it comes to the Nylon Capital Shopping Center, I got a lot of ideas that should be done there, I think, like street performers. I've been to places like New Orleans, Key West, Florida, stuff where there's sanctioned street performers, and they do great. I think it'd be a great thing to come to this town. And also, one other thing is, some of the things I've spoke on before on other meetings, it's been brought up that we have a staff shortage as far as the police in town, which I understand. It's hard to recruit, it's hard to keep good officers and all, but there are other cities who have auxiliary police units. They have, I haven't researched enough to know what they're doing, but I'm sure they do the low-level things like crowd control, traffic control, things like that. I'd like to see us get an auxiliary police unit and possibly even train them how to run a speed radar and get them set up somehow where they can monitor speeds in town, because speeding in this town has become a problem. And being short-staffed with the police, you can't really blame them completely. And I don't like the idea of putting speed bumps on a residential road like you did on Nylon, you know. And if you had some people there run radar and give out a few tickets, you'd be bringing in some revenue, and maybe you could afford to get a few more officers. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have Susan Nancaro.
Well, that's fast.
I don't control the buzzer.
Good evening, members, mayor and members of the council, and Mr. Anderson.
Good evening.
Thank you for allowing us to have the opportunity to speak. What I'd like to speak on today is last year's municipal election and the issues that surrounded it. As you'll probably remember, we not only had to count once, but twice, and then a third time with help from people who were sitting in the peanut gallery out here to help get the count correct. And the meeting was only reopened after a member of the public had said, hey, I think we have a problem. So I know that when it was first brought to the attention of the election board that there had been an issue with the first count, it was said, this is the way we've always done it. I submit to you, if that is the way it's always been done, then there may be a historical issue that you need to look at. That's not what I'm here to talk about. However, with the election board, there's 3 citizens of Seaford on there. There is either an issue of competence or the confidence to contradict someone when they say, this is the way it is. And that respectfully needs to be addressed. In addition to that, while I was outside, a member of the public came up to me and he or she said, I feel as though I've been intimidated and bullied by someone who is not on the city staff but was a volunteer or part of the election committee that year. So I came in and spoke to someone, and that person got moved at least to a different place where they would not be able to have as much interaction with the citizens as that person could have. That's a huge problem that you have. If you have the perception of even 1 or 2 people that someone who is on the election committee is bullying or intimidating or have been partisan, have written letters to the editor for candidates, no matter which ones they were, or have been on social media praising certain candidates, out in the community praising certain candidates, and that also is a perception problem. My solution suggestion to you would be that if the municipal election were moved to a time where there is another election, such as a state or national election, you would have folks who are trained in how to deal with the public, who are trained in how to count, have accountability outside of the city, and you probably would get a higher percentage of citizens voting. The last time there were very few who did, so, and that is my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. There you go.
Next, we have Chris Vane.
Mr. Mayor, I've got some prepared remarks. They're going to run about 4 minutes. May I have 4 minutes or so?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Chris Vane, 133 North Pine Street. Thank you, Council, Mayor, City Manager Anderson, for allowing me to speak tonight. As most of you in this room are probably aware, a known criminal, perpetrated despicable acts against one of our citizens on Friday, January 13th, 2023 at approximately 10 a.m. This will not stand. If you think about it, this heinous incident was also an assault on each of us. I think we can agree much more needs to be done to make and keep Seaford a safe and prosperous place to live and work. The way I see it, we need to redouble efforts to maintain law and order in this town, period. Together, we need to figure out what is attracting so many law-breaking and code-flouting individuals to our community. I hear comments that we don't have enough resources for our police and code departments. If this is true, then we need to find and fund those resources. The highest priority of any civil society is for that society to interact in a civil way. This requires representative government and those mechanisms which we call law enforcement and code enforcement. The process to elevate our town out of this mess will be long, hard, time-consuming, and expensive. But this pales in comparison to what happened on Friday, January 13th, 2023. The process should begin with the council immediately examining the budget in fine detail, cutting out waste and frivolity so that resources can be found for the police and code department. Our state senator and representative should be engaged to try and secure some of the $657 million surplus the state has projected for the current fiscal year. Consistent involvement by council and citizens with our senator and representative will help with future funding requests for police and code enforcement. Next, I can tell you that my family and I are committed to continuing our efforts to help the center of Seaford, Old Seaford if you will, become a safe, livable, prosperous area. I call on other citizens, especially the citizens in Old Seaford, to become actively involved in these goals. These steps should always be ongoing. Why, may you ask, always? I'll tell you why. Because evildoers and persons who flout the law will never go away. We must forever be vigilant in addressing the dangers and problems they bring with them. All of these efforts require leadership. I say to the council, if any of you hesitates to act, then you are not a leader and you must step down. I say to our police, we support you 100%. But police forces, like any organization, need leadership. So if the chief can't provide it, he must step down. Worrying about speed bumps and unrealistic 15-mile-per-hour speed limit signs is not leadership. Quotas of any kind are not leadership. To be fair, the city has accomplished some good things, including the efforts of attracting Amazon, expanding the industrial park, renewal projects downtown, and most recently, the deal regarding the old shopping center. This has made the apple, Seaford, Delaware, shiny on the outside. But we have a rotten core. We shouldn't stand on our laurels or pat ourselves on the back too much. I'll close by telling you the story of the wolf. Not the Little Red Riding Hood story, but the wolf that lives among us. The wolf is that individual who looks inwardly, thinking only of himself and thinking nothing of others. He has an insatiable appetite for consuming whatever he wants at the moment. His cry is, "Give me what I want," and he says it constantly. He plays upon your emotions and good nature. And so you say to yourself and others, let's do this and that for him, and maybe he'll be satisfied. Maybe at the least he'll just go away. Except that he won't. He will never be satisfied. You keep feeding the wolf, and eventually, as it is always his nature, he will eat you. I will not be eaten by the wolf. We must have maximum effort always for law enforcement and code enforcement. I will accept nothing less. Will you?
we have anyone else here for public comment?
We do, yes. Mike and Marie Bradley.
Anybody need a bathroom break before I come in? Good evening. First time here to speak in front of you. I made some notes. It's going to be pointed in some direction, but overall very positive, okay? First of all, this is our town, okay? And if everyone in here did not love this town, they wouldn't be here, all right? The out-of-town renters and landlords, owners, treat their properties and residents as a guest would. I'm referring to this group which haven't been mindful of the property as well as others, okay? And the rules that the city has in place, all right? This group I mentioned, I'm not sure whether they're even aware of what the rules are because we have so many different demographics in the town, okay? And I don't know who some of the landlords are. We personally got involved in a situation a couple of weeks ago, called the city, got a name of a landlord, our dog got attacked, and looked it up on Google, and guess what? They don't exist. I called the store, we looked up all the people with a last name, nothing in the area. So the only way that I actually found out even who lived there was I called animal control, they came, find them, and now I have a name and a phone number. We have 5 federally funded halfway houses in this town, 2 of which I just found out this week are on Pine Street. One of which, our carjacker kidnapper resided prior to the incident, and he was released from there that morning because of excessive alcohol content, okay? Guess how many are in Georgetown? 50. Guess how many are on the east coast of Delaware? 0, okay? Just a little bit of graphic information. I'm wondering if we should have some sort of handout to give to our not only landlords or residents, knowing what is acceptable conduct in our town, okay? First of all, I want to interject something, and I happened to think of this a few minutes ago. My delivery guys deliver in Seaford, and there are actually homes in this town where the bed never gets cold. There are people that sleep in that bed in shifts as they work. We also have people coming around once a week collecting rent. And I'm thinking that maybe the following items should either come to a vote with the council or maybe be a referendum on an upcoming election. Should non-resident landlords be charged a higher tax rate with the excess going into a property improvement condemned demolition fund used only for that purpose, okay? We've got a lot of people that do not see the residences here in this town, and we are depending on them, all right? Should there be exterior property inspections 2 times a year with a grace period of only 30 days to prove the appointments? Should landlords' names be accessible to contact in case of an emergency? Should the city have contact information for the residents that come there? So that, say for instance, if a dog bites me or my wife, do we have information about whether they've had their shots or what's happened to them? Okay? And I want to conclude with the mayor and city council have made tremendous strides in improving our city. And I totally believe that with all my heart. Been here 25 years. I've seen some of the old regime that was, I won't say they're holdouts from the DuPont regime, but it needed to have people with families that go to school here and involved in the community very actively making the decision, okay? We have reached a good status, and you are attracting small businesses, et cetera. And it's a thankless job. And you are accessible every time you walk out of your house. So I commend you guys for being able to take the time and speak, because I know you're hit from all angles all the time. Changing direction is a difficult job to accomplish immediately, just like a full barge taking a different course. The momentum is strong, but eventually you control and change direction. I'm confident that everyone in this room wants the best for Seaford for the future generations. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mike. Who's next for public comment?
We have Pat Jones.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Pat Jones, and I live at 721 3rd Street. I also pastor a church at 214 North Front Street, where a brutal attack took place the Tuesday before the incident on January 13th that we never heard about. We never heard about. We had a right to know. We had a right to know, and I believe with my whole heart, if we had known that the person that was attacked would have been on high alert. If anybody came near her, anybody approached her, we had the right to know. Why didn't we know? Was it because of where it happened and who it happened to? We need to make our streets safe for everybody. Young, old, black, white, rich, poor. We all have that right in this town. And I am really upset at the fact that it was not mentioned at all. And I felt guilty, although I had nothing to do with either attack. The person that attacked on Tuesday, just Tuesday of that same week, as far as I know, they have not been apprehended. So was it the same person on Friday? Was it? We have to do better. We have to have the resources. If it's, and I spoke to the chief on the way in, if they give them what they need, give them what they need, because they cannot do it without the ammunition. They need the resources. Not saying that they have to shoot anybody, but what they need are resources. They need resources to help us all. And because they don't have the resources, what happened on Tuesday trickled down to what happened on Friday. And if we had known about the Tuesday incident, then Friday may have never happened. We had a right to know. Let's do better.
Anyone else for public comment?
We have Craig Alaman.
Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening. My name is Craig Alaman. I live in downtown on Cannon Street, and I've been proudly a member of resident downtown for about 8 years now. And I try to serve as eyes and ears because I also work downtown. I walk around in the mornings, I walk around in the evenings, and when I'm seeing something or a pattern of something, I reach out to you folks, and I want to come tonight and be on the record just so that you all know. we've made a lot of progress, a lot of great progress. Just got a lease signed for a new bakery downtown. A lot of great things are happening. But I've been noticing the last several months, especially with it getting colder, there's been a lot of new faces. Now, the first 7, 8 years or so, there was always the reliable homeless people that were around that just had problems, but were harmless, wouldn't hurt anyone. And after engaging them, they knew they could not panhandle near any of our properties downtown, and they respected that, and they moved on. But this last couple of months, I've been having a lot of new faces. And when I engage with these folks, they say things to me like, I just got released, and I just got dropped off here, and I don't live here. I'm just trying to get money to get out of here. And at first, I chalked it up to, all right, I don't know this guy, they'll tell you anything. But I've been hearing it again and again and again. And then this morning, the police department let me know that there might actually be a factual basis behind that, with some other municipalities putting folks on one-way bus tickets to Seaford. And I just want you folks to know this, because this is a problem, because these folks bring their drug addictions, they get agitated. I've had to call the police, which I normally don't like to do because I know they've been stretched thin. But the police department said, please don't do that. We need the data. Call us, let us know. But we have the Seaford Garden, we have the bakery, we have all this great stuff happening. Like, Craig, you gotta let us know. Even if we can't make it out there on time, just so we have the data points to know where to allocate resources. But I need you folks to know that we have to do something. So even if that means, because you're gonna have a lot of people come up and say, hey, you guys gotta do something, but don't raise our taxes. But if that's what you got to do, that's what we got to do. We have to have the investment with the amount of growth that we're seeing in Seaford. Whatever it takes, we have to give this police department what they need, get more boots on the ground, give them the pay that they will stick around, and make that investment in our future. Because we're taking steps in the wrong direction with respect to these folks that are just popping up out of nowhere, giving us a hard time. So you all have my support, of course, as always. But I wanted just to come tonight just to share my observations with you downtown. And just urge you to take some action. And you will not have any opposition from me or anybody that I can convince if, at the end of the day, you need to reflect and perhaps even adjust the tax base for folks here in town. Thank you.
That's everybody we have on the list.
That's everybody? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Cannon, did you sign the sheet?
I didn't see any sheet.
Mr. Cannon, you know the public comment process better than anybody in this town.
I gave my public comment to the secretary and anticipated that she would announce that I wanted to make a public comment.
If you'd like to come up and say something,
Yes, I would.
please come up to the mic, sir.
I was under the impression that there was no longer any sign-in required. Is that wrong?
We've been signing public comment the whole time, sir.
Well, I'll certainly make sure I sign in from now on.
Thank you.
Dan Cannon, 411 Nylon Boulevard. Before I start with my prepared remarks, I did want to say that I certainly am glad to see that there are a lot of people who came out to make a public comment, and that this is the purpose for which it was founded and intended. The people that spoke here said that, some of them, needed more time to make their public comment. I usually agree with that, and I do. People need to be allowed to have enough time to make the public comment to make it make sense. Limiting it to 3 minutes and ding, ding, ding is counterproductive. I have to agree with the man that came and said that the sign that in the triangle going down to the Nanticoke River Bridge, where you have to look over your shoulder to try and see the oncoming traffic, is a traffic hazard. Did bring it myself to the attention of Mr. Anderson and the Chief of Police. They put in a new and different place for a yield sign. Doesn't eliminate the obstruction which keeps you from being able to see clearly the traffic coming down the hill on your left. It's a problem. Moving the elections to November would not only help have trained personnel, it would keep the process legitimate. And I have to say that obviously, with a number of people who have come forward tonight talking about this and that regarding violent crimes and others, that this city needs to realize that there is a larger problem and do something about it and not make it like it's not here. My prepared remarks are in relationship to the elections and the election process. Representative Danny Short holds on to some rather old-fashioned ideas about the Delaware Department of Elections conducting municipal muni voter registration, and especially holding municipal elections in November. However, Representative Short should not ignore one fact. Consolidation of municipal elections to the November general elections date would save Delaware taxpayers, all Delaware taxpayers, money. But how? The Delaware General Assembly has approved charters for 57 Delaware municipalities, each of which controls muni elections to determine its elected leaders. Under the current municipal election system, there are 56 individual municipalities which can conduct 56 individual state-compliant municipal elections. Only the city of Wilmington has the Department of Election conduct its muni elections as part of the general elections held each November. So according to the DOE, this year, 2023, there are currently 50 individual municipalities scheduled to hold 50 individual municipal elections in Delaware. Each of these 50 towns or cities will incur relatively low financial obligations for elections because the Delaware Department of Elections foots the bill for significant voting services or preparations for each and every one of the 50 municipalities. Fact, in 2023, 50 individual voting jurisdictions, each requiring virtually all the same kinds of services or preparations provided for a single November general election, will be substantially more expensive than one shebang for all if held in November. There is some outright reluctance or hostility for consolidation of voting to November and or the use of the Department of Elections voter registration system in spite of current negative outcomes in municipal elections. In the vast majority of the 50 communities, negative outcomes include municipal elections where low percentages of potentially eligible voters are actually registered to vote, and very low percentages of potentially eligible voters actually vote and decide the outcomes. Given the obvious cost disadvantages of holding 50-plus individual muni elections, why wouldn't Representative Short, his allies, and Seaford's mayor and city council want to save every single taxpayer money by consolidation of muni elections to November? And why not use the very successful Department of Elections voter registration system? I urge everyone to objectively evaluate the facts and use the facts to make the right decisions to use the Delaware Department of Elections voter registration system and to move municipal elections to the November general elections date. Thank you.
And that's it for public comment, correct? Okay, do we have any correspondence?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, I want to give a little correspondence. I do want to send a thanks to Mount Olivet Church for holding their 23rd annual father-daughter dance. It was a packed house again, and they reach fathers and father figures from all over the peninsula, providing a wonderful night. Restaurants were full. It was a blessing to our town. So grateful to have them. Okay, under new business number 1, I'll call up our Chief Marshal Kraft.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, city manager, and also to our members of our community here today and those watching this Zoom meeting. I appreciate your time, and I hope that, that this will help to address some of the concerns that were addressed tonight. So we were planning to go to the planning session the end of this week to present this for a recommendation in support of the council. So I'm here before you tonight to make that early so that we can get moving towards what we believe are our needs. So based on our staffing needs, what I've made a recommendation for and what I believe the council and mayor support is to add an additional 5 officers to the Seaford Police Department. Specifically, what we intend to do with these additional bodies is to do exactly what members of our community have spoke about tonight. One, we need to increase our patrol shifts to a total of six members per shift. So based on our authorized strength currently, that would be adding 2 additional bodies to patrol. Additionally, because as folks have mentioned, we have been seeing an uptick in violent crime in this city, and it absolutely needs to be squashed. There's a number of things that we started doing November of 2022 that the city manager and I spoke of, and I'll briefly address that tonight if you'd entertain me. So with that said, our criminal investigative department currently has 3 detectives. They are over their heads trying to keep up with these cases. It's extremely difficult to be proactive. So 2 other officers, if approved, would go down to the criminal investigative department. One of those investigators will be a full-time drug detective. That's a great need for the city of Seaford. Drugs come with violence and guns and also quality of life issues and life safety issues, and the list goes on. And I believe that that would greatly help us to improve our current situation. In addition to that, with that full-time drug position, if you look up on the slide, at the time that I did this, I was thinking of several alternative solutions that may also help bring additional federal resources to assist us, and that was the Drug Enforcement Unit to become a part-time task force. But in light of some additional violent crime, the trends that we are seeing, I would like to say that my recommendation after reviewing it would be to put that drug detective into a part-time marshals task force. If we get the federal task force with the marshals and we get warrants like we have currently for a person that's sitting in jail in Maryland, or they could be in South Carolina, any state other than Delaware, our federal partnership with them would allow the marshals task force to obtain an out-of-state fugitive federal warrant, locate them, apprehend them, and bring them right back here to this state so that we can bring them to justice. And I think that would go a long way to help get those resources that we need. That also comes with ways to track people that we don't currently have. In addition, the other thing that I think our community needs greatly is a full-time community policing officer. We need an officer that can be able to bridge the gap between the community and the police department, full-time. We could have regular meetings with our community members. We could help set up crime watches. We absolutely need, and I'll say this again, we absolutely need the community support, but we need your help as well. This is a partnership, and in order to solve crime and to make a difference, some of the members said it, Mr. Vane said it as well, we need people to get involved, and we need to do a better job in helping them get involved. And so I think that with this position and things that we can do between now and then is to be able to bring some community members to the table, set up some crime watches, have people help and work with the department and talk about what they're seeing, what their needs are, and be able to have a person that can actually sit instead of being called away for a call for service. Sit in the community, run the radar if that's what needs to be done. Make contact with somebody that appears to be doing some type of nefarious activity. But I have to state that officers can't just stop people for no reason. There has to be some form of reasonable, articulable suspicion. It can't be based on someone looks a different way than what I do or somebody on my street. It can't be just because they're walking down the road. We have to be able to identify something, whether they committed a crime, about to commit a crime, or have already committed a crime. But by having somebody that knows the community, that's sitting in there on Pine Street, on Arch Street, and other streets in our community full-time on a regular basis, I think that that would go a long way to bridge that gap. So those additional 4 officers would be able, I believe, if we can reach that level, to be able to accomplish this. And we would begin to work immediately on this, should the council approve those positions. Next, some of the other things and concerns that we should share is the fact that we have 5 officers that can retire within this year. Not saying that they all will, but many have mentioned that they're looking. That's a great concern to us, right? Because every agency is experiencing this right now. People aren't staying in the line of work as long. They're retiring and your applications are going down. I appreciate the support of the community and the council members. And I want to say to the group and to those looking that this group of mayor, vice mayor, council members, and city manager has absolutely supported the police department 110%. And I'd expect no less. And that's one of the reasons that it drew me to this city. This is a great city. I live just a few miles outside of this town. I've spent a lot of my years here in this city. I coached here, my kid graduated here, my wife was born and raised here, and she currently works here. So what happens in this city affects me, and it affects every one of our cops. So we're in this together, and I certainly believe that we can definitely make a difference with what we're about to do, hopefully tonight. And so with that said, one of the things that we have already started is to create what's called a street crimes unit. This will be a 9-member team. We'll have one OIC, which will be a lieutenant. We'll have 2 team leaders and 6 additional members. This group of people will receive some specialized training to be able to do our higher risk fugitive apprehensions because we run into difficulty because other departments have staffing problems. To be able to send their high risk team down here, we can do our own. Search warrant executions, they need to rise. We need the staffing to be able to work these cases proactively so that we can do this. And not only that, but we'll be able to do some of that covert operations based on place-based crimes, known offenders, violent offenders, that we can identify through more intelligence that we'll be able to create through the use of these street crimes units, crime prevention checks and things of that nature. Place-based and offender-based crimes is going to be one of the things that will help us do a much better job. But once again, we just need the staffing to be able to do those things. We hope to have this team implemented by the spring. Absolutely will be implemented before the summer, though. And finally, if you look, we did purchase, I spoke to the city manager, we reallocated some grant funds to purchase GPS trackers, 14 for all of our patrol vehicles. And one of the things that we talked about several years ago is trying to improve the transparency with the community. We often get calls, or council members often get called, and they never see an officer on my street. Doesn't matter what street. And we have, only thing we can do is push out there administratively is, hey, we need you to patrol here, patrol here. But I'm going to be honest with you. It's all throughout the city, and there's so many places that we're trying to push our officers to. They just really, they might drive through there, and they don't have time to stop. And if they do, they get called away to a call for service. But one of the things that we can do is do a better job in tracking our officers. Are they going to these spots? I've already set up several geofences within our community, one of which is Pine and Arch in that community area there. And another area is over on the Front Street side. And then our goal is to constantly identify place-based fences and try to put those geofences up. But the good thing with these trackers, even if we don't do that, we can go back up to a year, draw a self-defined boundary in there and see which cars were there. How long did they sit there? How many cars have been through there? And in fact, we can even see which officers were being the most proactive in those areas so we can have a certain layer of accountability. And we can bring that data back to council or back to our advisory board. So I think that's going to help a lot with our community to let them know, yes, they absolutely were there, and this is what we did, and then we can transfer that into some other proactive initiatives. So with that, at your disposal.
Well, again, we acted quickly on this, and I appreciate you getting this all together for tonight. Council, is there any questions for the chief? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the request of the Chief of Police, Marshall Kraft, to hire 5 additional police officers prior to the start of the April 2023 Police Academy with funding provided by the Realty Transfer Tax Reserves as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Henderson. Is there a second?
I'll second that. Councilman King, I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. Are there any questions on the motion? If not, let's do a roll call vote and state your reasons, please. Councilman Henderson?
I vote yes on the basis that it will further the goal to improve life safety and quality of life issues here for our constituents.
Okay, Councilman Santos?
I vote yes because I think this is very important for the city of Seaford, for public safety. Thank you.
Councilman King?
Absolutely, I vote yes.
Councilman McCoy?
I vote yes. Our community deserves full protection, and I believe in our police force, and I believe this addition is going to go a long way.
Councilman Holland?
And I vote yes also, based on the fact that the information that was provided tonight, we're here to support you.
Okay. So it's unanimous. I'll say again to the public, this is one step. There are other things we are working on that'll be coming forth there's many things on the plan that we'll be bringing forth over the next, that'll be a process, but we've got to work towards it. So thank you again, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your work. Okay, next I'm going to call up Ms. Day for the community garden.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Good evening, and thank you all for having us here today. My name is Cassandra Day. I am the president, founder, and most importantly, the volunteer of the Seaford Community Garden. You have to be hands-in. You really do. It is a business in itself, but an amazing journey at that. We come today, and I say we because there is a group here with us today. We have a graphic designer who has volunteered her time, Scottish American Military Society has volunteered time to us and actually donated a website to us. So we do have a group of people here, volunteers and businessmen as well, to back us to show you that we started this garden already and it's not even growing. So again, thank you for having us. I can talk a million miles an hour, and I will try my best to be clear and short as I can. We actually worked on index cards, so I feel like I'm back in college, mind you. With that said, so we hope that you've all already heard about this. I know that when I just speak to random people, they'll say, oh, I've heard about that garden, and they might even be from Georgetown. So our name is being spread just like the flowers are being. And we're not, like I said, we're not even open yet. So to see people coming together and talking about a garden that's built for the community of Seaford before the flowers are there is an amazing experience to be with. We are a nonprofit. We are working on our nonprofit and our bylaws as we speak. Currently, the Boy Scouts Troop 249 has given us rights to sister under their nonprofit to receive funding and donations while in lieu of ours being in the process of. So with that said, we're able to now receive funds and donations of every form to grow this garden. What is a community garden is what I'm going to add, what I'm going to bring up to next. A community garden is a community outreach program in itself. There are many aspects of this garden that aren't just about growing a flower or a tomato or a cucumber. We're bringing people together. It brings a self of togetherness, a community garden. You are bringing neighbors that might be 5 houses away from one another who've lived there for 20 years and never met, who've never spoken before. When you have a community garden, you are now sitting next to somebody you've never spoken before, and you might be growing something different than they are, and you're learning from them through it, and you're becoming friends with that person as well. You might be a business owner and have a small garden in our garden, and next thing you know, you find a new employee, or you find another business partner, or networking with somebody new because they're in the garden as well. Community garden is also good for physical wellness, mental wellness, and health, well-being. Actually, soil is a serotonin, so you really shouldn't wear your gloves in the garden. Hands-on is the best way to be. It helps with therapy, with children, within adults. It's a very tranquil place. It's a very safe place to be. And the word safe seems to be a big thing tonight. So it's nice to have a safe place, a happy place to go, and to just unwind and enjoy Earth, enjoy whatever Mother Nature has given us. We also, within the community garden, plan to and are now in process of designing classes and courses for the public, children, homeschoolers. We're actually going to be working in the near future with the middle school, with the National Junior Honor Society, building gardens with them. So we are networking with a lot of organizations and building classes where we're going to have beekeeping classes that will be open to the public. And within that, anybody can come down to the garden. We'll have a certain amount of courses, and we'll raise funds for the National Bee Society, as well as a portion towards our garden to grow. There's also monarch butterfly release programs that are available out there to save the monarch butterflies. So within that, we're working with the school to bring in the native pollinating flowers to bring the pollinators back. So we're bringing the butterflies and the bees and the hummingbirds and the beautiful birds that are in our area back, and we will track them back. And a lot of people have a lot of interest in saving monarch butterflies and bringing native plants to the area to bring all that into the area back. We noticed a lot of shortage in the butterflies and certain birds because of society and the chemicals and everything that's used in properties. But there is a lot of people that are now trying very hard to change that, and we want to be a part of that as well. So we're going to hold classes and courses to teach about butterflies. Also courses for learning how to garden itself, whether it's planting a tomato, propagating a plant, harvesting the food. We will be there for the people to teach them that. Cooking and canning courses can also be something that we involve within the garden, because hence food. So there's a lot of classes and projects that we can build from this garden. Again, it's not just about putting a tomato in the ground, it's about building a community. Right. Okay, so as of right now, well, I should go back and say, it's almost about a year ago I came up with an idea to put a garden in Seaford for people to come together, that we should have a garden for veterans, that we are going to give free beds for veterans of Seaford, because they deserve more than 10% that veterans get in life as a discount. They sacrifice their lives. They believe that we can give them a garden to grow good food in. And when I brought up this idea almost a year ago, within 24 hours, I had such a positive feedback from people, from councilmen to business person to whoever it might have been, that reached out and said, you know what, that's a great idea, Seaford could use this. Why don't you run with that? Now here I am standing in front of you all, a little nervous because this is the first time I'm ever doing something like this, if you haven't noticed. And within a year, we have built so much more than a garden. We work with the Boy Scouts, we've worked with the Girl Scouts, we work currently with the VFW, as well as their auxiliary department, American Legion, homeschool parents, the schools we're starting to work with now as well. So without the garden even being completely finished, we're building a community. And it's an amazing journey to be on, and y'all should be a part of it, I really believe it. You come down, you watch volunteers with the hearts that they have, come down on their free time, that could be doing something else with their family, going shopping, getting their nails done, or whatever it may be. On their free time, they come down and they help us build this garden. This was not backed by a ministry or the town. This was backed by the hearts of the people of Seaford. Obviously, you all have a wonderful city that you have so many hearts to be able to build this the way it has, just from the average Joe, the average Jane. So that goes to show you that Seaford has a lot of love. I mean, they're taking their time out. I could probably get more volunteers than some people can hire employees right now. And it's funny, but it's true. You know, when you say that you're building something for the people, you're building something for children or veterans, there are so many hearts out there, it's amazing. And you don't know it until you're in it and you see it. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm very blessed to be a part of. So with that said, within the first 24 hours that I did get feedback, I was given an opportunity by Mr. Craig Alleman, who you all know, who is doing his very best to clean up the city of Seaford. And when he heard my idea of bringing something in beautiful that brings people together, that networks people, that provides food and life skills, he was all over it. He said, you know what, that's a great idea, you do this. I have property for you. I already have the property for you. You want it, you come down, let's talk. And that's exactly how it went down. He has now given us 2 separate locations within the same area. So on 214 High Street, which is across from this Seaford Executive Center, is where we're building our Veterans Garden. And if you've all passed there, I'm sure you have, there's white picket fencing now up. That fencing was from volunteers that came and met me down in Willards, Maryland, who drove 50 minutes away on their own time to dismantle a fence from some man who was tired of mowing his lawn around the picket fence. So we got blessed, and there was maybe 12 people, a dozen people down there who drove, like I said, 50 minutes away to disassemble a fence, and we're just regular people. We're not carpenters and landscapers. And then we actually, Absher Construction Company hauled the fencing for us. The Boy Scouts took our fencing, power washed it, and brought it down and helped us install it. So this was in not even a year. So within 7 months, we go from Mr. Alleman saying, hey, here's a piece of property, to now having a picket fence up. And behind the scenes, our beds are being built. So we're almost there. We're looking to open, actually this April of 2023. With that said, there are a few other locations we would also like to look into. But the second phase of this garden, which is on North Pearl Street, is for the community. So the first, I know I just jumped in, I'm sorry. So the first area on 214 High Street is our veterans beds, where we're going to have free raised beds for the veterans on a lottery-based program for Seaford. So any veteran of Seaford is allowed to apply for a free bed. These beds are all raised beds, so they are also handicap accessible. You can pull a wheelchair up into the bed or sit there as well, which isn't just comfortable for seniors, it's comfortable for everybody to garden. Then our second area that Mr. Alleman is allowing us to use is on North Pearl, walking distance from High Street. And there we're going to have a community rental beds. So any family member of Seaford is able to apply, and we'll have low affordable raised beds for them to use for the year. We'll have one fee for them for the entire year to have that bed. And we can also help them with their beds. We can help teach them how to grow things. We will help harvest them. We will help them in any way possible to keep those beds. And they get to go home with wonderful food. And we all know today the shelves are getting low, the prices are going higher. And to have fresh food that you grow yourself is very rewarding. Excuse me. So with that said, our second phase, which is our community rental beds, will then help in lieu pay for our veterans to have those free beds. So we'll have this all available come April of 2023. In the future, we would really love to see more gardens like this in the city of Seaford. The goal was if we had 4, where you had each section of Seaford, north, west, east, and south, you have accessibility for people. Not everybody drives, so transportation becomes an issue. And you'd like to be close to your garden as well to tend to it. So our future goals are to find more locations to be able to spread this word and make bigger gardens. We would like to also see sharing gardens where people share in rows and they're able to harvest based on their family sizes. And they come together and grow together with others, where we have a greenhouse and they can learn how to build the greenhouse and then grow in that greenhouse for their gardens. So like I said, our long-term goal is to see more gardens like this coming into Seaford. With that said, in the period of time I've been working and talking with people, we've been offered a few properties that are being spoke of right now. So this is an idea that people seem to really take to and have heart to. I have citizens that say they have property that's not being used and they want to give back to people as well. So now offering their property at their home to build gardens for Seaford. So this really is an amazing experience. And if y'all at the city of Seaford in the future has any unbuildable properties that you would also like to work with us and lease to us for future gardens, we would love to be able to talk to you further about that as well. So please keep that in mind. Am I way past? Yes, I told you I wasn't going to go off my cards. So progress to date is where we're at. Like I just kind of mentioned, we have gotten together with many groups, many people. We have built garden beds. We have put together, we built the fence. We painted the fence together. We are speaking with schools and getting classes started, working with the organizations we're working with, and where am I at? And also building our nonprofit, as well. So our bylaws are being built. We have a small board that we're starting with. We have a secretary and a treasurer, as well as myself as the president, so we're able to start getting on our feet and bring bylaws to the table to be more professional and to grow, and be able to receive more grants under our own wings. Most of our projects that we're building are all recyclable projects. We want to be as green as we possibly can. So when I first came up with this idea, a big idea of it was to stay recycled. As we all know, the price of wood is like the price of gold today. So I said, okay, if we're going to be building garden beds, how are we going to do this based off of volunteers? And the way to do that was using all recycled wood. There's pallets you see down on the roads all the time, outside businesses, being thrown out. That's usable wood. It could be recycled. You break them apart, you build something new with it. And that is our main agenda, is to use recycled wood, reclaimed wood. We actually have a project for a chess and checker table that the Boy Scouts are going to be engraving for us for anybody to use at the garden. And it's old wire spindles that we're using the tables for. So a recycled project. What else is in there? The mobile library out of pallets. Our book nook out of pallets. benches are made out of pallets, recycled wood. So there is not a big expense for us, which is wonderful, but we're also recycling, which gardens are a lot about. We want to be as green as we can. We don't believe in chemicals, we believe in natural foods or organic foods. And we want to keep everything around it as recyclable as we can. In the past 10 months, we've also started side businesses where we have sip and paints for the people in the town. We bring people together, they paint glassware, stemware, coffee mugs, and they gather with with friends and other people that they've never met before and mingle and network and build relationships, and we raise money to be able to purchase material that we'll need for our garden. And those will be donated towards the veterans, yes. So the big thing we come to the city of Seaford for is for promotion. We come to you for support. We come to you to let the town know that we are here for the town, that we want to grow with the town, that we want to help children, seniors, veterans, and thy neighbor grow together, work together, and come together. We gather, we had a float this year. So for the first time, we're not even a full garden yet, we decided to put in the application to be in the Seaford Christmas Parade this year. And we did so. We did very well. We had volunteers come together. We used all recycled projects, pieces and wood, recycled wood. We were donated many things by many businesses. Absher Company, Sal's Pizzeria gave us boxes to use to paint on. Lord's Landscaping gave us flowers to rent, to use on our float for the weekend and return, and we did. Many businesses, Joanne Fabrics even gave us a discount to use on a snow blanket. And we came together as volunteers, and there was many hands in it. The National Junior Honor Society children showed up and were able to receive credits by coming to work with us and help us paint our projects. The Girl Scouts came as well and helped us paint our projects. So we came together as a group. We didn't really know what we were doing, and we made a beautiful float. And we actually, if you're not aware, we won the Kiwanis Choice Award trophy for the parade. So it was very, and I say we, because it is we. It definitely takes a team. There's no I in team. You know, it definitely takes a city to build this. And we did amazing, and it was an amazing experience. And we hope to continue to do that for years to come. So to plant a seed, to plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. When you plant a seed, you watch it grow. You're watching your future. You're watching the future grow. And it's an amazing experience. You give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a woman to garden, and the whole neighborhood eats zucchini.
That's very funny. That's very funny.
It is true. You know, and then you're teaching your children to grow. And then your children learn how to grow, and they learn how to cook. And then they pass that on. And the life skills that come from this garden is memorable skills and memorable experience to have. So promote, we're looking for your promotion, we're looking for your backing, we're looking for your support, network, put our name out there, spread the word, show up to our garden, wave hello, we'd all love to have you, feel free to get dirty, dig a little, have a garden with us, it'd be wonderful to see. So that's what we ask of you, is to support us, to watch us grow, and to be there and join us in this experience. These are a few projects now that we want to show you that we are building that are recyclable projects. I won't take up too much of your time, we'll just go through them quickly. But examples. So we have old gutters from a home. Instead of throwing them in the garbage, we can use them to put strawberry patches in. I do this at my house. I have a shed. Right on the side of my shed, there's gutters, and the strawberries grow in it. And you can do this keeping it off the ground, and it also gives us more space to grow more within the garden. That is another wire spindle that we're going to be using to build a children's play table. So anybody walking through the neighborhood is allowed. It's a community garden. They can come and the kids can play. Or when you're gardening, you have your children with you, they have something to keep them busy. The raised garden bed for the veterans is there on the left picture. Now that is, again, pallets, recycled pallets, reclaimed wood. And we designed it where a wheelchair or a seat can sit under it and go on to each side. The depths we have come together so they can grow anything they want in this garden. You can grow tomatoes, you can grow lettuce. It's actually something called square foot gardening. So the garden is, each bed is 3 by 4, which is 12 square feet, so there's 12 square feet of gardening. So that's how we designed that one. This is examples of a book nook, mobile library. We think it's important to have the mobile library there so anybody can come take a book. We'll have a children's one as well as an adult one, and anybody walking past can come take a book and read. They can actually sit in our garden and read it as well. So here, an ideas, we put together on the left picture there is a planter return box. So we had a plant sale last year in the beginning of all this. Came together with volunteers and said, does anybody want to grow flowers? Let's get together. And we did. We had a few meetings, a few luncheons, never met each other before, put a list together we wanted to grow. And this past June 2022, we had a plant sale. And we raised we raised funds. And with that, the Boy Scouts actually helped us at the garden, at the plant sale. And it wound up raining on us that day. It was like a monsoon, it was 105 degrees, and then it poured. So the Boy Scouts still stood there and held our tents down and held out our signs saying plant sale, no matter what was going on outside. So after our plant sale, we came together and we surprised the Boy Scouts with a check and a donation for helping us. They were so surprised. They had no idea it was coming. We went down during one of their meetings, and we made one of those publishing clearinghouse checks. It was nice and big. And those boys were so excited. There was one of the children actually held on to that check so hard. I turned to him and I said, kiddo, do you want to take this home? And he did. And he did take it home and still has it to this day.
He cashed it.
Yes. He wished he could, I'm sure. So anywho, so we made that return planter box in the last picture so this way people can return pots, empty plastic pots, for us to then recycle and reuse for our next sale. And people have been dropping off planters, so it does work. So we hold monthly meetings with volunteers, always looking for more. We're always looking for volunteers. There's a volunteer for everything we do. Again, I volunteer. We're all volunteers. Most of the people in here are volunteers. Most of the women and men in here have sweated with us and painted something and stood in the rain or in the heat to help us, and it's amazing. So yes, we also have a photographer who follows us in town who loves Seaford. She's new in Seaford with her family from Colorado here, not that long, and started her own photography business, and she asked if she can come capture these moments with us. So we were blessed to be able to share in pretty pictures what she does and what we're doing. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, we went down as a group and we got volunteers together to take this fence down in Willard, Maryland, and that's the fencing we have now at the garden. We are looking for fencing in our second area, so if anybody knows of any used horse fencing or picket fencing, please let us know. We are looking for fencing. So our motto, the biggest motto from the beginning, is for every seed planted is another heart grown. And that can mean many, many, many things. You're building community, you're building friendships, you're building networking, you're building family, and you're growing things, and you're growing them together with people. So much of what we are doing is we want to unite our city, holding the plant sales. We become vendors at booths to raise funds. We also had the sip and paints, like I mentioned. It is a beautiful journey, and we really would love to see you work with us. So thank you, everybody, for your time. And we appreciate everything that you do for us in this city to keep it safe and to keep it beautiful as it is. And we promise as volunteers to keep it clean and keep it as pretty and safe as we can on our own. We now have a website that we just passed by for you all to check out, email, and there's many ways to contact us. So let's get growing, as I say.
Well, that was a fabulous presentation. I really appreciate you bringing us up to date your journey, because I did not know the journey. So that when you arrive, it means a lot more once you get there. Can you go back to that page on donations? I just want to make sure we capture that. So if people are inspired by what you're doing and want to partner with you financially.
Yes. We have a GoFundMe account that is attached to our website.
Okay, all right. So they go to your website, they can financially.
Yes, we also have a list, one of the tabs on our website, where it shows materials that we're looking for donations for as well. So we have a list there, as well as our upcoming events, meetings, volunteer meetings that are open to the public. We keep there.
Well,
to
I
keep
know-
it updated.
I know this group will certainly help support you and promote you, and we'd love to come down and help whenever you need us. So just let
Wonderful.
us know, and if we can't make it, we always send our city manager. So
That's okay.
because we love him that much, right? So, but really appreciate you coming out tonight. It was
Well, we
wonderful hearing
appreciate
from
you all having us very much. Thank you for your
Thank you
time.
so much.
Thank you. And I've seen that gentleman hand things out to you all. All I have is business cards.
Cool, thank you.
So I'm gonna.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Just trying to-
Excuse me, sir.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Thank you.
Don't mind my nervousness.
Oh, I get nervous too.
I'll get there.
You did a great job. Great job. All right, next we're going to call up Mr. Hearn to walk us through the traffic generation diagram. Normally it's sewer pipes, today it's traffic generation.
Last week it was water pipes.
That's right.
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades. So good night, Mayor and Council. The policy you have before you, sorry. Policy we have before you is a traffic generation diagram policy. The impetus for this project, or this policy, is the Western Sussex Business Campus. So just a brief rundown, the campus has 3 entrances, one on Herring Run Road, and according to DelDOT, one on Ross Station Road, North Market Street Extended intersection, and then North Market Street and Virginia Avenue intersections. Each entrance has its own set capacity and design vehicle for the improvements made. DelDOT has asked, as part of the approval process, that the city monitor to make sure that the site development that's occurring inside that campus doesn't exceed the capacity of those entrances. And so essentially, what we're asking to implement tonight is a check to make sure that the entrances is operating well and the traffic impact study that was performed remains valid for this project. And the city's going to use this data to accomplish that. Expanding on this a little bit, after discussion with the city manager and director of economic development, thought it'd be a good idea to include this on most of the projects in the city. This gives the city something to refer back to, establishes a record essentially to compare back to and use for future road improvements in the city. By implementing this policy, it starts the record for that specific parcel or set of parcels. That's what I got.
Are there any questions for Mr. Hearn?
I have one.
Councilman King?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we talk a little bit about the potential or the traffic study? I mean, a traffic study now versus when the park is fully functional and operating is completely different. So what goes into that?
So we work with, DelDOT has a big piece of this or a piece of that puzzle. When we started the project, we worked with DelDOT and engaged in a traffic impact study. So that looks at to get in a little bit of detail, there's a trip generation diagram manual that says for this type of activity, there's generally this amount of traffic that's generated. And with that data, we projected what the business campus would produce in terms of traffic. And DelDOT used that data, plugged it into their model of their road network, and says, this is your impact on these intersections. We feel you don't need to do anything, or you do need to do something, and this is what your entrance needs to be sized for to handle.
So based on that information, was there any adjustments that needed to be done due to the increase in traffic? So was there any additional lights needed? Is there any upgrades or timing that needs to be adjusted?
Based on the traffic, based on what we provided, the answer is no. There was no additional improvements outside of what you were constructing for that business campus.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions from council? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the traffic generation diagram policy as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Holland. Is there a second?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second the motion.
Councilman McCoy seconds. Any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman Santos?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Hearn. Okay, do we have any old business?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, reminder of meetings?
Okay, so we just have a few. The city planning session will be at the Nanticoke Senior Center. Starts at 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. That's this Friday. Burley Mears will be the Director of Public Works, will be the acting city manager from January 29th through February 5th. And then on Saturday, April 15th, we have the municipal election. That's from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. There are 2 council members to be elected for a 3-year term, and the filing deadline for candidates is 5 o'clock on February 24th. The last thing I'll add is Councilman Santos has filed for re-election.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. We'll go to committee reports. Councilman Santos?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report has been filed in its entirety. The following meetings were had by city staff in the past couple of weeks. They met with the representative from Habitat for Humanity regarding scheduling a rock block event this spring. They're looking at the areas of Arch and Pine Street, and their focus is on yard cleanup, power washing. They will try to schedule this a week or 2 before cleanup week. They performed an interview with Star regarding the year-end wrap-up article. There's been a lot of progress in the past couple of years, and just be on the lookout for that. They attended a progress meeting number 2 for the renovation of 106 Spring Street. They are about a month out. They will turn it over to the Bringhorns at the end of February. That's what they're expecting. Other work, they participated in police interviews. They reviewed applications for customer service representatives in Parks Tech 1. Attended the quarterly golf course meeting. Things are going well there, and we should be on the lookout for a new well for irrigation purposes. They attended the Del Dot scoping meeting for the Dovey property development. They asked us if we would support them in putting up a light on the northern reaches of the city. It is in our growth zone, and for the IT report, they performed window updates on all virtual servers, worked on firewall configuration issues, and worked on resolving license issues regarding VMware. They worked with the tower installer regarding the downtown camera systems. The cameras that we've been waiting for a long time now are in. For the administration report or finance, they attended contract negotiation meetings for IBEW over the past few weeks, and they processed and distributed year-end payroll documents. They are distributed fiscal year 2024 budget schedules, worksheets, and instructions. They reviewed applications for the customer service representatives and attended the Hooper's Landing golf course meetings. All other business is routine.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, Police Fire, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a report from Chief Wilson of the Seaford Volunteer Fire Department. To date, there have been 58 fire responses for an average of 2.5 calls per day. In EMS, there's been a total of 243 calls per day for an average of 10.5 calls per day. Under significant incidents, there was an assist for Station 78 on the 13th for Chicken House Fire on Hickman Road in Greenwood. There was an assist for Station 81 for a 3-alarm structure fire on East Market Street in Laurel. You might recall that's the fire that occurred downtown. That was on the 18th. On the 18th again, there was a trailer fire on Rifle Range Road where they assisted Station 72 Bridgeville. The 18th was a busy day. They also assisted Station 81 for a residential fire on Timber Circle in Laurel. On the 20th, There was an out-of-city motor vehicle crash with entrapment and fire on Elks Road and Sussex Highway where a subject was trying to evade the police. And on the 23rd, there was a motor vehicle crash with entrapment on Sussex Highway in Blades, and that was an assist to Station 71 Blades. Apparatus, Tower 87 is still out of service due to the fire, the Harrington Street fire, and the tower is in Roanoke for an insurance survey. Engine 87-2 is out of service for air actuator issues. The last training occurred on January 18th, where they did AED and CPR training by Delaware State Fire School, and a paramedic assist class by the Sussex paramedics, and 35 members attended. The next training will be on February 1st. The class subject matter will be announced at a future time. Under emergency medical services, all 3 ambulances are in service. Testing and interview for 3 open firefighter EMT positions start January 23rd. Open job posting for lieutenant remains active until February 15th of this year, and county ALS and BLS meeting is scheduled for January 25th at Millsboro Station 83. Firefighter EMT Eric Upole resigned his position for other job opportunities. Under news and events, the district fire prevention awards were presented to winners at West Seaford Elementary, Fred Douglass Elementary, Seaford Elementary, and Sussex Montessori. January 14th, there was, the members attended the Step Up and Lead Leadership Seminar at Blades, Station 71. Chief Kraft reports for the Seaford Police Department. You'll see the graph at the top of the report, which is available to the public on the city website, but you'll notice that the 2018 column is dropped off because we're keeping a 5-year tab, a 5-year running total, but that just because the totals have dropped off does not mean that the chief is not keeping tabs of that data. It's just we can't fit all the columns on one page. So as you may have heard the chief talk about earlier, we've from January 1 to January 22nd, there have been a total of 624 total complaints. Under all crimes, there are 288, and the distribution is listed down below. Traffic tickets, all traffic tickets, there were 414 contacts with 112 tickets issued. You'll see the distribution of the crimes, 288 total crimes, and you'll see the distribution between misdemeanors, felonies, violations, civil, and other. There's an 82% clearance rate, which is actually quite good given the fact that our CID is under stress. It's actually above average nationally, but we know we can do better, and that's one of the reasons why we voted to give them more resources tonight. Drug complaints, there were a total of 33 drug crimes with 29 adult arrests, 2 pending actives, and 2 juvenile arrests. There were 2 search warrants issued, and unfortunately we had 2 overdoses. It doesn't say here that they were fatalities, so I'm assuming that they weren't, but the Seaford Police Department does not often encounter overdoses at this point because they're referred to EMS. So those numbers are embedded in the EMS calls, but they did have contact with 2 overdoses during this period. Under traffic, there was, as I said earlier, 414 traffic contacts, 112 citations, and 8 warnings. 4 DUIs, 3 including alcohol and 1 drug-related, and 1 was crash-related. There were 42 crashes, 4 injury accidents, and we all know about the fatalities, but this was through Sunday, so there's been some recent traffic fatalities in the area, even in neighboring towns in the past day or so. There were 22 non-reportable accidents and 16 reportable accidents, 7 hit-and-run accidents, most of which occurred on private property, such as Walmart, Texas Roadhouse, China Star. There were actually a couple on the streets in Seaford. No bicycle accidents, no motorcycle accidents. There was 1 pedestrian accident, which actually occurred on private property on Atlanta Road. So you can see the chart with the time of day and the number of calls per day and the activity. You might notice that this Sunday was the most active day during the period, which is usually not a Sunday, it's usually a Thursday. Although Thursdays were pretty high, and the time of day activity is also seen in the chart. So if you'll indulge me, I will go over most of these significant events since this period has been really hard on the community in the first 3 weeks of the year. On January 6th, Seaford Police Department responded to Chandler Heights 1 for a reported robbery and assault. Investigation revealed the victim's purse was stolen after she allegedly punched and sprayed. She was allegedly punched and sprayed with OS spray by 2 female subjects, who were later identified as Miss Kellum and two sisters, the Kellum sisters. One of them was arrested and later released on unsecured bond, and the other was arrested and committed to SCI in default of a secured bond. Now, this is significant because you may recall that the police were called, what's the name of the street?
Perkins Street.
Perkins Street, yes, Perkins Street. We had some residents that raised some concerns about violence on Perkins Street, and these 2 subjects were the alleged subjects that were causing the trouble on Perkins Street, which is, there's another street that goes to the back of Fred Douglass, and a couple of those residents were very concerned for their safety, and ultimately these young women were arrested for a separate issue. On the 9th, Seaford Police conducted a traffic stop on Atlanta Road with 2 occupants, Jason Jewell and Blaine Evans. The driver, Jewell, had 3 active warrants. Further investigated revealed 3 concealed revolvers in a duffel bag, a television, numerous valuable items along with a registration card and credit card in the same name of a deceased subject from Caroline County, Maryland. Both subjects were arrested for weapons-related charges and committed to SCI. Maryland authorities were notified of the possible stolen items. On the 9th of January, Seaford Police Department responded to Meadowood Court for a domestic-related incident. Defendant Paul Jones kicked a door to a residence and fled. Seaford Police Department and Delaware State Police and Trooper 2 responded, established a perimeter, and located the subject with a concealed knife. He's a person prohibited. He was arrested for related charges and committed to SCI. Again on the 9th, Seaford Police dispatched a title held for a reported stabbing that occurred in the area of East King Street. Further investigated revealed the victim went outside to confront a subject making noise, which resulted in the unknown subject stabbing the victim in his upper left arm before fleeing on foot. This case is pending active. On the 10th, Seaford Police dispatched to Title Health for a serious physical assault in the first degree and rape. That occurred on Front Street. I believe this is the occurrence that Pat Jones was referring to. CID detectives responded to Title Health, referenced the same. The victim was transported to Christiana Care, and the subject was described as a light-skinned black male. That's pending active. And on the 13th, Seaford PD CID investigated a kidnapping case on Arch Street. The subject was identified as Ralph Harmon Jr., and he is currently detained at the Wicomico County Detention Center for attempted homicide and other related charges. A Seaford PD warrant is on file for kidnapping first degree, assault first degree, robbery first degree, aggravated menacing, and other related charges. The FBI is also investigating this case as it crossed state lines. The U.S. Attorney's Office, DOJ, and Maryland State's Attorney's Office are also working together on the prosecution of Harmon. On the 16th, Seaford Police Department responded to State Street for a report of shots fired. Officers recovered 4 .40 caliber casings and 1 live round in the roadway. While checking the area, officers observed a damaged window. Upon further inspection, observed a large number of drugs inside the residence, which led to a search and seizure of 2,000 grams of mushrooms, 3,300 grams of marijuana, 500 grams of THC wax, and $5,724 worth of U.S. currency. Several empty handgun cases were also located. Elijah Dixon and Kelly Bramble were later arrested on related drug charges and committed to SCI. January 20th, Seaford Police Department CID responded to a reported robbery that occurred inside a residence on 4th Street. The victim reported 2 unknown black male subjects in ski masks were inside his bedroom, and he was struck in the face several times with a handgun, which resulted in injury, rendering him unconscious. The victim awoke and discovered his wallet missing, so this case is also pending active. I took the time to read all of these because this is by no means all of the activity that the Seaford Police Department engaged in the last 3 weeks since January 1st. These are only the significant ones, which they determine are significant. There are other instances that you and I would consider significant, which didn't make this list. So just got to underscore when the chief says that he needs more CID, that he's being really serious. And I'm amazed at the closure rate that they're able to close these cases out when they're stretched so thin. And hopefully, help is on the way. So there are some administrative activities that the chief and his administration engaged in, and there was the most significant activity was the training, the active attack integrated response training at Seaford High School and Seaford Middle School. Deputy Chief Rappa was the instructor, and that occurred on the 7th and 8th of January. So I know that was a lengthy report, but under the circumstances, I felt it had to be thorough. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Code Parks and Rec, Councilman Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Charles, if you help me, Keith, what's his last name? How you pronounce it? Keith. Thank you.
Sorry.
Last day in Parks and Rec is Friday, January 27th. After 32 years of service, 3 interviews have been scheduled for 125 for the Parks Tech 1 job. Youth basketball games are underway, and city leadership approved hiring a part-time employee to assist with the rest of the youth basketball to begin in the coming week. and 2023 to 2025 landscaping contracts have been advertised. And they attended the monthly Seaford Tomorrow meeting to discuss the 2023 schedule for events. And the first Riverfest Committee meeting is to be held February the 2nd, and all the work is routine, and that concludes the report for Parks and Recs, and I'll switch to Code Department. 1,747 rental license has been issued. Rental license late fees will be assessed for February the 1st, and water and sewer and base pavement have been installed at Bel Air, Danfield Drive, and all the work is routine. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Next, we have electric. Councilman McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report's been submitted in its entirety. I had a few highlights. Since the last report, the crew have done their monthly substation checks. They've replaced a pole that got hit by a car in front of the Hampton Inn, and took down the Christmas lights and blades. Regarding our director, he had his standard director's meeting, council liaison meeting, and he met with Charles, Tricia, and Gary about the fiber loop. He also worked on the FY24 budget. Over the course of the next few weeks, they're going to start working in Bel Air single-family residence section, and continue changing the lights on Sussex Highway LED. I do want to mention before I close, Mr. Mayor, you hit on it early at the very beginning. A lot of things have happened here recently in our community. Normally stick to Seaford only business, but I do want to extend heartfelt sympathies to the Pugh family and what they're dealing with. It's been heartwarming to see that community and how they rallied around that family and what they're going through. And my thoughts and prayers are still with the Pugh family and their loss. And that's been my report.
Amen. All right, and finally, we have Councilman King, Public Works, Wastewater Treatment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report has been submitted in its entirety. I'm just going to hit some of the high-value things that are going on throughout our community. I will start with the Public Works Department. The team has been extremely busy repairing water issues throughout our city. As everyone knows, when cold weather comes, things freeze. And with that being said, they spent some time on Bridgeville Highway repairing some water issues there, Walmart parking lot, and Pine Street. While the team was out, they had to perform some equipment maintenance is getting done. The leaf machine is put away for the year. The team is still focused and committed to go around and picking up a lot of leaf and limbs, keeping the debris up and the city looking good. They've done all these tasks with one person out, so they've been working extremely hard, which I appreciate, because as some people don't know, I'll just talk a little bit about the routine task. I mean, the team is out, they're sweeping, they're picking up leaves and limbs, and reading meters, the disconnects, the hanging up, pink tags, collecting water samples for the city, barricaded, and supplying barricades and working with the other departments throughout the city. So just continuing to do these tasks day in and day out, short-staffed. Just kudos and a big thank you to the team. I'll jump over to the wastewater treatment facility. The plant is doing well. They are performing maintenance to some of our lift stations. Some of the things that are going to be coming up over the next 2 weeks, they're going to be installing some new water services, as you can see throughout our community, which is good to see. There's still a lot of new homes that are being built. And with that being said, they have to go in and help assist to get the water and everything hooked up. The Seaford Village lift station bid is due. They continue to work on the smoke testing list, and of course continue all routine tasks and keep the plants up and running with no violations. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. I do want to thank all of you for coming in early tonight at 6. Appreciate the work you put in. And with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Santos, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, case unanimous. Thank you. Good night.